Start with Why by Simon Sinek. Now, this book is about how how leaders inspire others to take action, how we can all inspire people and inspire ourselves to take action. Start with Why. The whole concept of this book is that unless we're clear on the why and unless we can communicate the why behind whatever we're doing, everything else is inconsequential. We can be really good at communicating what we do. We can be really good at communicating how we do it. But until we're able to communicate why exactly we're doing what we're doing, what is the purpose behind what we're doing, we're really unable to communicate, to connect with people, because that is the level, like what talking about your why is talking about the level of your heart and soul. That's when you make the truest, deepest connections. And Simon Sinek likes to connect it with the whole idea of how your brain is hardwired. Well, like the most primitive part of your brain is the limbic brain, and then on top of it, and the highest or the most the outward most evolved part of the brain is the prefrontal cortex. But the prefrontal cortex is all about logic and how stuff is done or what stuff is. But the limbic brain is all about emotions and feelings, and that's where it comes into play. And even our subconscious is really all about emotions and feelings. And the why is the why attacks exactly that point, the idea that what are the feelings? Why are we doing this? And this is what Simon Sinek, what he's saying is, once we figure out our why and then we can communicate our what and our how, that is like communicating from the inside out, from our heart and our soul to the brains and all that stuff. But if we try to communicate from the outside in, first we say what and how, and then maybe we say a little bit of why, we never resonate with the other person. We never really get to the real depth of the discussion, of the argument, of the point that we're trying to make. The second big idea is that if you want to build trust with people, if you want to connect with your tribe, if you want to connect with your audience, you want to get to explain what your why is. You want to explain what is it that you believe in, what is your core purpose. Why do you exist? Why do you exist as a company? Why do you exist as an organization? Why do you exist as an entrepreneur? Why do you exist as a human being? What is it that drives you? Why are you doing what you're doing? Because when people buy into your why, then they become a part of your tribe. Then they trust you. Then they want to be with you. Then they want to be a part of your tribe. So really important to be able to communicate the why for a lot of different areas of our lives, not just from business perspective, but even from family perspective, from relationship perspective, from maybe from dating perspective, whatever it is. Your why has to be very crisp and clear to the outside party so that you can connect, they can connect with you. The third big idea comes from Jeffrey Miller's great book, Crossing the Chasm, where he describes the bell curve of adoption, of early adopters, of how any new product that comes to the market, it goes through a adoption curve where there are the innovators, then the early adopters, and then the idea starts to take on. But it is really important to be able to get the innovators and the early adopters to buy into what you're trying to sell, into why you're doing what you're doing. Because until they believe in your why, you do not have a tribe, you do not have their trust, and you can never get to the tipping point. So always be communicating your why. As an entrepreneur, as a business owner, if you're not communicating your why, if you're not communicating your purpose, why you're doing this, you're going to find that it's really hard to get traction, because people cannot associate with what you're trying to do unless they can associate with why you are trying to do what you're trying to do. So to get to tipping point to get to cross the chasm of adoption, of no adoption to real adoption, you want to be able to communicate the why behind whatever you're trying to do. Now let's take a few stories, because stories are really tell us the truth. Stories are what really tell us the truth, or give us really great insights into what is going on. Martin Luther King. Now, Martin Luther King, when he had that great march into Washington where 250,000 people showed up, blacks, whites, people of all colors, races, sex, everyone showed up. What was it? Why did people show up? Did people show up because of what Martin Luther King said, what he would do, how he would approach this problem? No, he didn't talk about how he would solve this problem of racial bias in the country. He didn't even talk about what exactly he would have to do in order to solve this problem. He did not talk about that. All he talked about was the why, the fact that I have a dream. He had a dream, he had a mission, he had a purpose for why he was in existence, why he was doing what he was doing. And he kept on talking about the dream. And the people who came there that day, they came because they believed in his why. They believed why the purpose for what he was doing was so important, so noble, that they had to buy into, that they had to come. They had to be a part of this mission. They had to be a part of this cause, and they could not stay away from it. So being able to communicate your why can completely change the way you do your business, because that's when people buy into you. That's when people really trust you. Another story is the story of flight, of how airplanes were invented. There was this person by the name of Samuel Pierpont Langley. Maybe most of us don't even know who he was. He was at Harvard. He was a Smithsonian fellow. He was very well funded by the government, and he had the newspapers following him all around. This is the time when people were running to get airplanes to work. They wanted the flight to happen. And Pierpont Langley was apparently at the cutting edge of all of this innovation. On the other side were of course the Wright brothers, who were just two bicycle mechanics who were so enthused about what they're doing, who were so excited about this cause that they would just keep on doing it. They would take so many spare parts with them every time they went to do a test flight. They just had this belief in this cause, which was to change the course of history. And their cause was so powerful, so empowering, that of course we know that they were the ones who invented airplanes, the Wright brothers. But what we don't know is Samuel Pierpont Langley, who was also pursuing it very aggressively, did not get. And as soon as he figured out that the Wright brothers were able to fly a plane, he completely gave up. He stopped this pursuit. Why? Because he did not have a big enough why for what he was doing. His reasons were all monetary. And as soon as the monetary reward seemed like it wasn't going to be there, he just gave up. So realize that the why is the purpose behind whatever you're doing has to be really, really, really something that inspires you, that inspires your audience, that moves your audience, that moves your tribe, that really touches your tribe. And when that happens, that's when you actually have momentum. That's when you can really get people to work with you, to get people to trust you, and actually also that's when you can get yourself to work at the highest level possible.